And so we popped into our study early on a whole lot of measures that tried to capture some of those attributes. And a lot of these really popped out of that book, The Attention Economy, which is, what are the keys to getting people to genuinely engage with something. And I think it's more than just awareness. I don't think awareness really captures whether people are genuinely tuning in to a social change message or any other communication we're trying to get out there. So it's got things like, if we want to get the attention of people, first of all, the message has got to come from somebody who's got some credibility. So source credibility is a really critical issue we need to understand. I think one of the other issues is that it needs to be different, because one of the mechanisms that's driving the attention decline is information overload. And I was interested, Barry was having a conversation just a moment ago, and I think this is relevant to that one, that people are so overwhelmed with information that any way that we can crisply and clearly get the message to them is really valuable. Because one of the keys to getting attention is clear and concise, and that means like 4 dot points. Or tell a story where people can engage with the story we're telling. Anything in the middle, so all these PowerPoint charts like mine with all these words are just boring you silly, I know that. But literally, if we want to get our message across, it is 4 dot points, or we have to tell a story. There is no middle ground, and that's why I think those, what did you call them, infographics, I think they're essential to us to be able to get our messages across in clear and concise terms. I think we also have to tell our stories to make sense of that stuff, but we need to enter people's consciousness through clear and concise information. Then of course we have to get involvement. It's got to be interesting, it's got to be personally relevant, it's got to be engaging. At the end of the day, we want people to think about what's going on. So look, we had 7,000 interviews we'd done over the 12 months. This is part of our annual review. So we did 7,000 interviews, and we ran a regression model based on people who walked away saying, I'm going to change the way I drive. I'm convinced I've got to change the way I drive. So this model, it's got an R-squared of 74%, so it's accounting for about 3/4 of why people walk away saying, I'm going to change the way I drive. And so these are the things that make our road safety ads work. And they are things like, it made me think differently. I've taken that word out actually because it couldn't fit on my chart. But it made me think differently about the way I drive. So that reframing the problem is really what the ad has to do if it's going to get people to drive differently. It had to also make me think differently about road safety because I think I'm safe, you see. I think I'm driving safe. I'm not rushing, I'm not speeding. And who did we say, Larry? Somebody, one of your moderators, felt that he couldn't drive until he had a bottle of red wine. And you have to reframe that problem if you really want to get a change in behaviour. It's got to tell them something. There has got to be some new news there. If you've got no new news, it's not going to work. And the story needs to be interesting, or you're just not going to tune in. It's one of the other things with attention deficit is that the moment you see an ad or any piece of communication and you think you know what they're going to tell you, you don't tune in. You just tune them out. So you have to bring new news to the conversation. It has to be clear and concise and easy to understand. And interestingly, just notice this, because this is the regression model for the whole sample. I'll just show you the regression model we built for speeders, because it's slightly different. But there's got to be some creative flair. It's got to be a good ad. It's got to have some sort of executional positiveness, I think. And it needs to drive curiosity about finding a little bit more out about that to work. So look, these are the building blocks for our road safety ads. It'll be different for every social change campaign, but I think if you can just see the link between attention deficit, these building blocks within an ad, and fundamentally, it's exactly what Sam was talking about around framing the issue differently. The great thing that we could do with this, though, was that we could start to look out across our 24 ads, and we had all the scores people gave them, and we could look then at which ads were better or performing better than other ads. So you could see that multiple choices, which was the Dr. Auler ad, really was high, scored higher on a lot of these things. And we could see where ads could be a little bit weak. So it gave us a chance to say, listen, maybe we can re-look at testimonials and find a way to get a little bit more information in there that might be relevant. So it can work to enhance an ad. We could give them an idea of which ones were working better. And of course, over time, you can see, for example, the drink driving ad, that was a great ad, but it's been on for 4 years. So you can see it's starting to lose some of its power. So there comes a time when some of these ads might need to be replaced with another creative one. So we were able to give a lot of guidance on how you fix them, how long they stay on, and also something else, but I can't remember what it was. But then we also able to run this regression model just on those who speed. And of course, what really changes, these things remain the same. It's very important to reframe the problem. But the story being interesting, new news, and the best one I've ever seen, if you want to get to the speeding, rushing, mainly guys, it was really important that those are the aspects. And that's the other thing it was. This becomes a way of kind of evaluating new ads, or briefing the ad agencies to say, listen, this is what we want to achieve now with our road safety ads. So it gave them a way to help with the briefing process and say, this is what we're working towards, this is what we want to get out of your creative concepts when you come up to us with new ones. And so this is just really highlighting the difference between them. So look, that was really all I was planning to go through today. We did it for radio. The only other issue, yes, just to make everything more complicated, we've got the 24 campaigns, but they're actually quite different. Some of them are enforcement campaigns, so they're just out there telling people that the cops are going to catch you, or you're going to lose your points, and we're after you. Others are more behavioural change campaigns, and others of them, again, are sort of what we call vulnerable campaigns, where we're trying to get people to slow down for school zones, to be careful riding your motorbike around corners and that kind of thing. So there's 3 different campaigns, and again, we applied the analysis to them separately so we could come up with the same kind of story for each of them. So, which ads were working best? That was the question. We were able to look at that around effectiveness, a campaign grid. We look for weaknesses, we look for wear out. We're also looking for interactive effects, and also we were able to do some analysis around the media buy. In terms of what we found was that they were spending too much money. They were achieving 150% of their reach in some cases because the ads were so good. They didn't need to put so much money into it, which meant they could spend money to create better ads, new ads, etc. So it was quite handy that way. So that's my little snapshot of social change ads and what makes them work.
How important is it that they are very graphic for the speeders? I mean, are those the ones that cut through better? Or?
I have an opinion on that. Our client does not run fear campaigns because they think people tune out faster. They work well. For example, when I first started, I took a job in Canberra working for the Office of Government Information Advertising. At the time when AIDS was about to become a really huge issue, Australia never got the AIDS epidemic. And what happened was very early on, the lobby groups got the government to run a campaign, and they ran a Grim Reaper campaign. And they spent nearly $1 million to make the ad, and it was set in a bowling alley. And they had the people lined up down there, and they had the Grim Reaper bowling the ball down and taking the whole family out. It was an incredibly huge fear campaign. They paid to put that to air nationally. They bought 6 spots. So they spent $1 million, they put it to air 6 spots nationally on one night, and then they took it off. So I think fear campaigns can work to set the agenda, to frame the problem, to get the attention, but they should never be used on an ongoing basis, because people very soon start to tune out the message. You know, you can't sustain it. And what we're talking about here is habitual behaviour change. And I think, you know, so I think fear appeals are good for agenda setting, but I would never run a fear campaign perpetually.
David, did you also test what's the best medium? I'm thinking about billboards versus TV spots, because in Germany, I think they more heavily rely on billboard print ads.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I just thought Sammy's whole case study was brilliant today in terms of we've got such a proliferation of channels that you know, the TV will continue to work is a real. I don't know that it will. And so the channel analysis is really important, particularly for road safety, because radio and billboards is kind of in situ communication, and that works really well in road safety. So billboards is a big channel. Radio is really important, and we had a model around how the radio ads work, but some of them can work very well because you're driving and you get the message then and there, and it's good.
There were a really interesting series of ads run in Ireland and Northern Ireland towards the end of the Troubles, to get people to, I suppose, think precisely about what was involved in what the IRA were doing and what various terrorists were doing. But it was quite similar to the road safety campaigns, but they tended to focus. There was one I remember particularly well. They showed it about 5 times, very long ad, 3-minute ad, and it's a guy preparing to go out fishing, and another guy putting other stuff into the boot of his car. So he ultimately goes and kills the guy who's fishing, machine guns him, and you see his family, and you see the other guy's family, and he goes, the terrorist goes home afterwards, and so on. But it was such a graphic version of, I suppose, what was happening every day. But most people, you know, never saw a bomb, or they never saw anybody shot. There was 300 or 400 people killed over a couple of years, but it wasn't something you were ever particularly conscious of.
Yeah.
But in putting it on TV, it had a profound impact on what people thought about terrorism and the acceptability of I suppose, supporting an organisation that went to those lengths.
Yeah.
And most people tacitly did support the organisation in the north, but very rapidly became prepared for, I suppose, negotiation and cessation of activity. But very, very graphic. But a lot of the thinking was based around research initially done on road safety campaigns, and then applying that to the anti-terrorism campaigns. But I'm not sure that they're all still available online, but well worth taking a look at. But certainly run the early 90s, mid-90s.
Well, I mean, I think fear appeals, they've got a legitimate role, and agenda setting is one of them.
Sure.
Behaviour change over time, I don't think so, but for agenda setting, getting the attention of people, that can work fantastic.
All right, thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.